so nice. I didn't do anything yet. You know, it's there's a, first of all, I have no agenda one way or the other. It is kind of funny. I was once interviewing the CEO of Tabasco, who's a really nice guy, and I asked him, I said, what are some of the odd things you've seen people put Tabasco on? I heard somebody say it was a bagel and things like that. And he said, well, what I do is I like to put a drop of Tabasco in my coffee every morning, and I think it brings out the taste of the beans. So I'm not the coffee drinker in my family, and I went home and told my wife, who's much smarter than me, and I said, so anyways, apparently if you put Tabasco in, it makes the coffee better. And she goes, he sells Tabasco, you know, and so so these are the problems sometimes we have in here. Listen, some things in the economy I just wanted to go over. I think, you know, after COVID, there's going to be some permanent changes, more efficiency, succession plans. That's one thing we're putting in our reports now. After COVID, people realized that we're mortal. And, you know, and we were asking questions like, sure, she's the CEO, but where's your depth strength? You know, and I think that's really important. Higher companies are going to keep higher inventory levels because they're just so panicked of ever getting in that situation again. And simpler supply chains. There's a lot of onshoring. I think we're going to see a lot more manufacturing in the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, just to get us close together in there. One thing I think you're going to see a lot of that, but you're not going to see as many jobs out of that as you would think, because when they build these new plants, they are so efficient, they don't have a lot of humans. And that's what I do for a living, really, is take students to go visit plants and all, and it's kind of a little bit surprising to a lot of people. Why are we experiencing this inflation? Well, you've got the Russia-Ukraine war and what it's doing to oil and grain. Supply chain issues, which I think are starting to unravel. I think that's going to, and that's a third of all inflation. I think it's going to get better. It's already getting better. Why was the Fed late? I don't know. They were starting to sell securities back to the market back in middle of last year. They didn't start raising interest rates until this year, but they're doing it now. Relief payments, maybe too much of that went out. Labor shortages, it's just wild. I mean, it's just, you go to like a Denny's and you have to wait for 40 minutes to get, you know, your omelet. I mean, this is really crazy. And a lot of people don't know it, but La Quinta in Spanish actually means next to Denny's. A lot of people don't know that. But just kind of speak a little Spanish. I know La Nina is the Nina. I know some things like that. This onshoring won't be cheap, and that's raising inflation too. So, and basically what companies are doing now, when we talk to companies, that's we follow 40 companies, is cost is a big deal for a part or something like that, but now resilience is part of that package. That's part of the value picture for a company. And tariffs, you know, we still unraveling the tariffs that went down. That's holding us, raising inflation. Let's see. The enormous debt, you know, where's all that coming from? You got to remember that we've had 3 crises in the last basically 20 years. The 01, 9/11, and then you had in 08, you had the financial meltdown. In 2020, you had COVID. There was a tremendous need to put more money into the system back then. So one of the reasons we were going up anyway, we're always increasing the debt, but not at these kind of levels. And you know, we haven't had a budget surplus since President Clinton in 1992, so we've been increasing this all the time, but those 3 periods were really what did it. And lack of will. Nobody wants to raise taxes and nobody wants to cut government benefits. One of the things that's really difficult is to realize how to make money in the markets is to buy when people are selling, which is very difficult. You know, right now everybody's scared, and that's a great sign for investors. It really is. It's lonely. It's very lonely, but when I first started in the investment business, I remember I was just out of college, and an older guy pulled me aside, and now I think he's about 26. But he said to me, "Peter, remember, if a majority of the people were right, a majority of the people would be rich, and they're not." And I've always remembered that. In fact, I have that tattooed on my left buttocks. It's a good thing to remember. I asked Jake Netterville about that, and he said that was tax deductible, which is great. So things are really picking up. In the early 1990s, 2/3 of Americans felt the country was on the wrong track, and the 90s was a great time to invest. In 2000, 80% of Americans believed the country was on the right track, and that was a lost decade for investors. In 2010, nearly everyone thought the country was on the wrong track, and the market has basically gone up every day since then, a couple of blips. And now 70% of Americans believe the country is in the wrong direction. And like I said, that's great. And U.S. leadership, we've become a science-led economic juggernaut. When you look at it, what's leading this country and how do we lead the rest of the world? It's energy. We're finding more and using less, technology, life sciences. But for some reason, there's a very small minority in this country that are science skeptics or anti-science, which is the whole drive for our economy. You have people saying there's no such thing as climate change. If you live in South Louisiana and you fish, you pretty much know that's not true. Then you got the group that thinks vaccinations are bad for you. I've had so many people said to me, I don't want to get the vaccination because I think it'll alter my DNA. And I've met some of these people, and they should see this as an opportunity. Really, is and then there's that other group, the more extreme group, that thinks we staged the moon landing. I run into these, maybe it's the places I'm going to, but it's, that Armstrong really didn't walk on the moon, which is ridiculous, because we all know Louis Armstrong walked on the moon, and that it was a big day, hometown kid. It was really terrific. But if you want to learn about history, you have to talk to Thomas Brown. He knows everything, that guy. I assume he started the first Rotary in 1914? That is incredible. It's very impressive. Politics, don't let personal politics influence your investment decisions. It's always been a bad idea, and it usually doesn't go the way you think it will. For instance, if you look at annualized returns, the best returns annualized during the terms were Bill Clinton, then Barack Obama, then Donald Trump, and then first Bush, then Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter, and George Bush. We're up under Biden. We're up about 1% to give you where we are. But you can't base anything on your political beliefs or wishing badly on one or wishing positively on another. It'll cost you money. Profits count a lot. Richie Rich, he's a personal hero of mine, is over the long run, stock prices move in line with corporate profits, and the rest of it is noise, the rest of it is meaningless, the rest of it is like the first 3 quarters of an NBA game. It just doesn't matter. And so if you look at the markets, basically since 2011, these are all record earnings by the S&P 500, and it just goes up and up and up and up and up. And then just like you think, in 2020 it went down, and now it'll go up and up and up. And we're going to see new highs in earnings this year and in next year, and that's what the market needs to focus on. We've had, in 60 years of recessions, we've had, we've had 7 of them. They last from as long as 18 months. That was the big recession, depression in 07, 08. And it's funny because when you look at COVID now, technically it was just 2-month recession, but they don't last forever. They last up to 18 months, but the expansions are much longer. They're 5 to 7 years. Bear markets, by the way, usually last about 12 months. So the good things are much longer than the bad things. The Fed's trick bag, they're trying to keep the economy growing while holding inflation at under 2%. That is quite a chore. I do believe in the Federal Reserve, though. I think they're really smart folks. I have former students at the Fed. I have friends at the Fed. They are really the best and brightest. They're smarter than me. They better dressed. They have less body fat. These are very good people. And I hate the idea of politicians getting in the middle of telling the Fed what to do. It's like these guys. It's like, it has recently come to my attention that some of our imports now come from other countries. Don't give those guys the key, really. This is something I thought I'd show you. It's a little esoteric, but this is called the Fed model. It's the way the Fed views the markets, and it's very, very, just a sketch look at it. But if you look at the earnings for the S&P 500 and you divide it by where the S&P is, and this is about where we are, 220 for this year, and 4,000 is about where the Dow is. If that number is higher than the yield on the 10-year Treasury note, generally stocks are better buys than bonds. So they are here. The 10-year Treasury, this yield, this calculation comes to 5.5%, but the 10-year Treasury is only 3%. So it's telling us that stocks are better than bonds. We hadn't had inflation since I started in this business, the end of the Carter administration, beginning of the Reagan administration. So nobody remembered that interest rates go up, and when they do, bond prices drop. So, I spoke to so many people over those years that have said, oh, my husband and I, we would never be in stocks. They're very dangerous. We have all our money in long-term bonds. And I would say, I was going to their broker, excuse me, what are these parentheses in my account, So it's been a tough ride, really. It's I know the state has a tremendous windfall because of oil prices going up, but I want to tell you is that they're not going to stay up. The outlook for that industry, not the whole industry, but production of oil is not really good over time. And so I hope that the state and all these other municipalities use that money, this one-time money, for a good investment. And there is no question in my mind, in any case, that the best place to put money as an investment is in early childhood education. I mean, that's what you got to do. So thank you. It is that you cannot have a permanent underclass. I mean, that is not what you just can't have it over time. What is the Federal Reserve? Survey says 25% think it's a brand of whiskey. 30% an Indian reservation, and 45% on a wildlife refuge. So the people don't know a lot about the Fed. This is I'm going to give this to you, but I don't want it to leave this room. It's some work that I've worked very hard on, and that is that interest rates are directly tied to the height of the Federal Reserve Chairman, and it's a big deal, and because if you look at it, back in the late 70s, Paul Volcker was the head of the Fed, and he was about 6'6", and rates went up and up and up as they tried to kill inflation. Then Alan Greenspan was considerably shorter, and rates came down, and then Ben Bernanke was even smaller, and then Janet Yellen was kind of tiny, and rates kept going down and down. But Powell's 6'1", and rates are going up. So, laugh if you will, but and this is such a tough time for labor. Everybody changing jobs, and if you're in business, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But now I get calls so much for people changing jobs, and they want references. And I'm always scared to death to say anything negative, And so it's very uncomfortable situations. Like your employee, he was an axe murderer, but you're like Mike was sharp. There's you can't live like this really. But the other thing to remember is the stock market is not the economy. Everybody thinks that's true, but it's not. The stock market is a measure of future corporate profits. The stock market doesn't care if you're happy or sad or married or unmarried. They just want profits, and that's what they're looking forward is future corporate profits. So far in 2022, it's been pretty rough. Not as rough as the media makes it out to be. The media is, they're making everything worse because everything is so accelerated. I turn on you can watch Wolf Blitzer on the Situation Room, and he's talking about the economy. Now even I'm getting scared, and it's, and really, if my name was Wolf, I would not grow a beard. That would be the first thing I wouldn't do. But then you turn on, this is great what they gave me here so we can see what the other networks are doing. Okay, let's see what they're doing on Fox right now. They're coming for your guns, and next they'll be wanting your women. Okay, that's Fox. And let's see, CNBC, the station I listen to. Let's see, the money station. The Chinese are buying our debt. It's going to be wicked bad. Dogs and cats living together. So they're all to the extremes, And it's just ridiculous. The Dow so far is down a little over 11%. The S&P almost 15%. The NASDAQ, which is mainly tech stocks, which were pretty overbought in the beginning, are down 22%. And Bitcoin is down almost 57%. I just don't get it, the whole Bitcoin crypto thing. It's nonsense. It doesn't, if you had money, you want to invest in companies that produce profits, you want to buy farmland that produces fruits and vegetables that'll pay because you're going to get some money for selling the vegetables, or you're going to buy a block of apartment buildings and they're going to get rent and you're going to make money. What on earth are we talking about? People always inventing the latest shiny thing. I don't know what it is. All my students all have crypto. It's and not even Bitcoin, one of the 1,800 lunatic ones underneath. It is just wild. I don't know how we got here, but it's like CBD oil. It's going to change everything. I had cancer, but now I rose. It doesn't work. Now you hear everything about it. Stick with what works. I've known hundreds and hundreds of people that have made millions and millions of dollars, and they've made it buying stock in good companies with good balance sheets and smart management and holding on forever. And good mutual funds the same way. It's just crazy where we're going. It is, and of course, people are just so confused about money. I mean, I gave a speech once, and a guy came up to me at the end, and he said, I really enjoyed that, but your talk was all about stocks and bonds, so it didn't pertain to me personally, because all my money's in mutual funds. It was like, oh my God, I didn't have the heart to tell him. He seemed so happy, and obviously the Fed is trying to tamp down inflation, so the 10-year Treasury has basically doubled since the beginning of the year, the 150 and the 3%. You're hearing the Fed raise interest rates, and they're still going to continue, but that's the overnight rate, the Fed funds rate. It's the 10-year rate that determines your mortgage and your credit card bill and all that kind of stuff. One of the problems you have with the market is that if you let something drop too far, it's tough to get back. If you have a stock that's 20 and it drops to 10, well, that's a 50% drop. But to get back to where you were requires 100% gain. And that's really the tough math behind it. Oil price headwinds, we've got alternative fuels. 70% of all oil is used for transportation. Fuel efficiency, ride sharing, Uber, Lyft, abundant West Texas production up there. I don't know if you've ever been to West Texas, but it's a lot like Mars. And I've been to Mars on that last mission, and it's like God gave him a lot of oil and then forgot to put in any ponds or bushes or anything like that. And it was like, oh, I need to be in Santa Barbara, gotta go. So they had peak oil demand. A lot of the oil companies think it'll peak by 2030 and start to go down. And electric cars. By the way, the oil companies they've become energy companies. They're putting a lot of money in renewables. They know where the future is. And we've got to do that. If I come back 5 years from now, you're going to see more and more renewables being used. I mean, you can't keep fighting the last war. Energy, we are not an oil state. We're an energy state. And we just got to get that through our heads. We're the third largest producer of natural gas in the country. Natural gas has an enormous future. Oil doesn't produce electricity. That's the first thing. It doesn't. And what we need is more electricity. There's no question. Once we start charging these cars into our house, it's going to be unbelievable. So we need things that are going to make electricity. So you've got natural gas. We've got solar, some great solar arrays Mark Drennan was talking to me about. Terrific. And then the new future is going to be offshore wind farms in the Gulf of Mexico. And nobody has an advantage like us. We have the people that can do it. We have the infrastructure, and we're out there. And that is going to change everything. I got on the show the other day who's making the blades over in Avondale. And these blades, by the way, you always see them from a distance. They're between 1 and 2 football fields long. So there's something, it's like, I could do that. No, you can't. There's, and then the other thing we have for energy jobs is we have 14,000 abandoned oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. You could employ a lot of people decommissioning those and doing plug and abandonment as we get used to more jobs in renewables. The distinction is electricity is generated by natural gas, coal, solar, and wind. Natural gas is now the largest producer, but planes, trains, and automobiles almost run entirely by oil. That'll change. If you're watching the ball game, there's almost no ads for sedans or internal combustion engines. It's all renewables, and that's what they're doing. And that's where they know where things are headed. We think the growth in electric cars will be terrific. One of the things you hear all the time is, you can't get an electric car because it's where you're going to fill up, Whole Food, but it's capitalism. And you're going to go to bed on Tuesday night, I don't know where it is, some inflection point, and there's no chargers, and you wake up and there's going to be one on every corner. So that's where we're seeing. Future fuel, natural gas will go up, coal will go down, nuclear will go down, renewables up, solar, wind, hydro are going to become, when I say up, a bigger piece of the pie graph for the fuel to create electricity. Coal has had it. You sometimes know this because the coal industry in Louisville is now powered by solar. I think that sometimes God just gives you a little, something to look, oh yeah, no, you're absolutely right, sir. And so it is, it's funny when you do public speaking for a living because you're always alone and you never meet other speakers. But about 6 months ago in Orlando, I was backstage and I met a guy, and it was so fun because I got to chat and we were telling war stories. And he was telling me a story about a guy, another public speaker, who took a gig in North Dakota in February. He must have really needed the money, you know? And so he flies up there, the flight is fine, and then he comes out, and it's not 50 below zero, it's cold, but it's not the end of the world, and he goes into the hotel. And that night, like 2.5 feet of snow drop. And so he wakes up, and nobody's at the conference because nobody can get on the roads or whatever. So he goes downstairs and talks to the guy running the conference, and he says, listen, what do you want me to do? There's nobody here. He goes, well, you know, I paid you already, and we're videotaping it, so I'd like you to give the speech. So he goes, okay, and that's kind of weird. But he starts, and there's one guy in the audience, and he starts and gives it, and it's not unbearable because that one guy is clapping, and he's smiling, and he's taking down notes. And so at the end of the speech, the speaker comes up and says to the guy in the audience, he goes, thank you so much. That speech would have been unbearable without you. Thank you so much. What brings you here? And he says, I'm the next speaker. So it's, so it is, there are things to work on in here. And I only got a few minutes with you, so I wanted to have you, I sent these handouts to you, and I wanted to, just have you take a look at. Oh, thank you very much. And I sent these by mail, but I guess they got here, you know. But and people always trash the post office, like, oh, you don't get the mail. I was thinking, take it. They said, why is it 55 cents to mail a letter? If you take from the day they pick it up to the day they deliver it, what is that? It's like a penny a day. It's nothing. So it's so stand up for your post office. They But this is what I do at Tulane. And Tulane's doing great, by the way. For the last 6-7 years, we've averaged 45,000 applicants for 1,600 freshman slots. So it's doing very, very well. Just started 2 weeks ago. The kids still love me because I haven't assigned anything. And that's all going down the drain. But this is the program I run. I take 200 students every year. I break them up into teams of 5. And each team of students is assigned to write an investment research report on a small unknown company. We call them stocks under rocks. And so they're in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. And they write these long reports. They spend a day with the management, the CEO and CFO. We fly them out to go do that. They've had the best site visits in the free world. They've taken helicopters to offshore oil rigs. They've gone to steel mills. They've gone to chicken processing plants. If you've never been to a chicken processing plant, do take the family. That is a nice outing. And I take a lot of crap for this, by the way, this particular trip. And I just want to make something clear. After a couple of years of therapy, these kids are fine, and that's what's important. And in the middle, you can see the companies we follow. You're going to recognize the names because a lot of them are from here. And then the last thing I wanted to do is there's a little handout in here, and this is for WRKF, the public radio station here in New Orleans. I sit on the board of the National Public Radio Station in New Orleans. This is the one for Baton Rouge. We had an event for money literacy in New Orleans, and we're having one here on November 12th. And I would love it if you could talk it up or sponsor it. It is so important. You know, Louisiana is out of 50 states, we're 50th in financial literacy. And my wife, she's a sweet girl. But if you ever mention that we're behind Mississippi, she goes crazy. So it's, I haven't even told her this yet. And so because that's really what the key is. The key is not how much income you make. The key is what you do with your money. And so many people are so lost, and they need help. Particularly the middle class people don't usually go to something like that. So we would love to have your support and to talk it up. It is really great. My show, of course, is on public radio in New Orleans, and then Stephanie Regal, who is amazing. She does Out to Lunch here in Baton Rouge. Her husband is here. She's awesome. And as my producer said, but she's a real journalist, you know? And I said, what am I? And he goes, you're like the host of a food fight. You know, so it's, so anyway. But thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it coming. Thank you.
We've got time for a few questions.
State secrets, anything like that? I can give you the. Let's see. There's one. Yep. Who's that? Pete?
How big of a concern is the national debt growing as much as it is?
That's. I am one of those people. I'm not the crazy leftist kind of crazy people, but I don't think it matters long as we keep rates very low. That's really the case. What counts is the interest on the debt, and this is why it's scary where we are right now. I mean, up until a year ago, we were paying record lows, even though we had huge debt, in servicing that debt. And so it wasn't a problem. We always talked about it wasn't a problem until rates started to go up. So the real question is, how far up will rates go? And I think that's the real issue. Another thing to remember, though, is if you think rates are going to go through the roof, there's only the group that would be hurt the most is the U.S. government, and they're not going to let that happen. So I think there is going to be some sort of drop off. It's not as bad as it appears to be. And remember, sex is the leading cause of people. Just wanted to point that out. A lot of people don't know that, and I thought I'd clear that up. Any other questions? It's so funny teaching this course because young people have such a short, they want to invest for like 6 seconds. It's completely wrong. And I told the students they had to come up with a 12-month target price. And one guy came up to me and he was incredulous that I was making him do this. And he goes, 12 months, that's like 4 girlfriends from now. I was like, Jesus, just do it, So anyway. Well, thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.